Jennifer and Sarah Hart, both originally from South Dakota, were a married couple who portrayed an image of progressive, loving parents who had opened their hearts and home to 6 African American children. These children, Marcus, 19, Hannah, 16, Devont, 15, Abigail and Jeremiah, both 14, and Sierra, 12, were all adopted from the foster care system between 2006 and 2009. Prior to adopting these children, the Harts had adopted a 15-year-old girl, but abandoned her at a therapist's office where she was told they would not be back for her. This occurred just a week before the first 3 children, Marcus, Hannah and Abigail, moved in with the Harts from Texas. 2 years later, the other 3 children, Devont, Jeremiah and Sierra from Houston, were put in the home on placement and then subsequently adopted by Jennifer and Sarah. Their biological mother lost custody of them due to substance abuse, and despite living with their aunt temporarily, the children ended up in foster care. They did have an older brother, Dante, but he was not adopted by the Harts due to behavioural problems. The family, self-dubbed the Hart Tribe, frequently moved between US states, living in Minnesota, Oregon, and finally settling in Woodland, Washington, often appearing at social justice events. In particular, Devont Hart became a symbol of the Hart family's public persona after a 2014 photograph went viral, depicting him tearfully hugging a white police officer during a Black Lives Matter protest in Portland, Oregon. It was an image meant to reflect reconciliation, love, and hope, but it obscured a much darker reality behind closed doors. The Harts used social media as a tool to portray themselves as a close-knit, happy family. Jennifer, the more dominant of the two, carefully curated their online presence, posting pictures and updates that painted a picture of unity and joy. Their life appeared idyllic to outsiders. They travelled often, engaged in activism, and seemed to be raising their children in an environment of love and social awareness. However, beneath this carefully crafted image lay a web of control, manipulation, and emotional as well as physical abuse. Though the family appeared perfect on social media, signs of abuse had surfaced long before the tragic incident which ended the lives of all 6 children. As early as 2008, Sarah Hart had pleaded guilty to misdemeanor domestic assault after one of the children told authorities she had been hit. Teachers, neighbours, and acquaintances noticed troubling signs. The children often appeared malnourished, small for their age, and emotionally distressed. Some, like Abigail and Hannah, had visible bruises and marks on their bodies, which they attributed to punishments at home. On one occasion, Abigail reported to teachers that she had been hit for spilling food, and on one occasion had her head held under water after being accused of stealing a single penny. All children reported being hit by Sarah and Jennifer, and spoke of how they often went without food. The children were frequently removed from school, particularly after reports of abuse surfaced, allowing the Harts to control outside exposure to their parenting practices. After Sarah pled guilty to the assault charge, her punishment was merely a year of community service. After moving away from Minnesota to Oregon, authorities were notified of the abuse allegations and interviewed the family again. Extended family members claimed that the children had to raise their hand if they wanted to speak, were not allowed to wish each other a happy birthday, and were not allowed to laugh at the dinner table. Allegedly, after ordering a pizza for the children, who were allocated only, quote, small slices, only to find it had all been devoured, Jennifer punished the children by revoking breakfast the next day and forcing them to lay on their beds for hours. Several reports suggested that all of the children were, quote, scared to death of Jennifer. When questioned about these allegations, Jennifer claimed family problems were, quote, as a result of others not being tolerant of lesbian mothers raising African American children. Despite investigating, authorities could not say with certainty whether the Harts were guilty of any form of abuse, and couldn't determine whether they were a safety threat to the children. This conclusion, unbeknownst to authorities at the time, would later result in the fatalities of all 6 children. Reports of neglect, malnutrition, and physical abuse followed the family over the years as they moved from state to state, managing to evade significant intervention due to the fragmented nature of the US child welfare system. By the time the family settled in Washington, where Jennifer was a stay-at-home mother and Sarah was a store manager with 50% of their income coming from child support, the red flags had become even more apparent. In 2017, Hannah climbed out of her second-story bedroom window in the middle of the night and approached a neighbour who pleaded with them for help. She told them, quote, "Don't make me go back. They're racists and they abuse us." But despite this effort to save herself and her siblings from the clutches of Jennifer and Sarah Hart, she was forced back home, where Jennifer later claimed Hannah was lying. Jennifer claimed the children often acted out due to being, quote, drug babies. Devont, who was 15 years old, then began approaching the same neighbours Hannah had gone to for help, asking for food and begging them not to tell his adoptive mothers. He also told them that Jennifer and Sarah often withheld food and punished them. The neighbours, concerned by Devont's apparent desperation and Hannah's previous claims, contacted the police and Child Protective Services, also known as CPS. It was clear that something was deeply wrong in the Hart household. Yet, despite these efforts, the family managed to avoid any meaningful investigation by moving again and isolating the children from outside help. Both Sarah and Jennifer had cut contact with their families, allegedly after a number of family members scrutinised their parenting methods. CPS tried contacting the Harts in the following days, on March 23rd and March 26th, but to no avail. On March 26, 2018, the Hart's GMC Yukon XL SUV was found lying upside down at a beach at the bottom of a 100-foot cliff in Mendocino County, California, having plunged from State Route 1 near Westport at around 3 a.m. that morning. A camper nearby made the discovery after hearing the events from their tent, specifically screeching tires and cries from the vehicle. 5 of the children's bodies were found in or near the vehicle. However, the body of 15-year-old Devont has never been found. Despite this mysterious detail, the Superior Court ruled in 2019 that he was also victim to the crash and a death certificate was issued. After experts analysed the computer data from the vehicle, it was determined that the vehicle had intentionally been driven off the cliff from a standing stop, going full throttle and up to 20 miles per hour in the space of 3 seconds. Jennifer Hart had been behind the wheel, her blood alcohol level well above the legal limit. Sarah, seated in the passenger seat, and the 6 children inside the vehicle had all been drugged with Benadryl. Investigators and later a coroner's jury determined that this was a deliberate act of murder-suicide, not an accident. In the days leading up to the crash, Sarah had searched online for information on lethal doses of Benadryl and how much it would take to end the lives of her children. She had also searched for nature of death by drowning and no-kill shelters for dogs. The 2 family dogs were found at the Hart residence. It was later revealed that Sarah and Jennifer had planned the crash in response to the growing pressure from CPS, who had been alerted to the family's disturbing behaviour by concerned neighbours. The Harts, unwilling to face further scrutiny or the possibility of losing their children, chose to end their lives in the most tragic and violent manner possible. According to an incident report released after the murders, Sarah had told a co-worker that, quote, she wished someone told her it was okay not to have a big family. Then she and Jennifer would not have adopted the children. The Hart family tragedy exposed deep flaws in the child welfare system. Despite repeated reports of abuse from teachers and neighbours, Child Protective Services in multiple states failed to take decisive action in order to protect the children. The family's frequent moves across state lines, coupled with homeschooling, allowed them to escape serious scrutiny. Each state's child welfare services had limited access to records from other states, allowing the Harts to continue their abuse without sustained intervention. The child welfare system also failed to fully recognise the signs of psychological abuse. Jennifer and Sarah Hart were known to manipulate the children, controlling their behaviour through fear and emotional coercion. Neighbours noticed that the children appeared afraid to speak out, likely conditioned to maintain the facade of a perfect family that Jennifer had so carefully constructed. The children's isolation was exacerbated by the Hart's decision to homeschool, cutting off access to teachers and other authority figures who may have detected the ongoing abuse and offer assistance. The deaths of the Hart children were not just the result of 2 parents' horrific actions. They were also the consequence of systemic failures in child welfare. The red flags were there for years. Reports from teachers, neighbours, and even the children themselves went unheeded as the Harts moved from state to state. The tragedy exposed how easily vulnerable children can slip through the cracks of a broken system, particularly when their abusers are skilled at manipulating both authorities and the public. The Hart family murders remain a stark reminder of the need for reform in child welfare systems. It is a case that underscores the importance of thorough and consistent investigations, better interstate collaboration, and greater awareness of the warning signs of abuse, even when a family presents an idealised version of themselves to the world. The lives of these 6 children were cut short in a devastating act of violence that should never have been allowed to happen. Their story stands as a haunting testament to the consequences of unchecked abuse and systemic failure.